Well, why don't we get started now?
Okay.
Um, you have the control to see who else is in waiting
Yep.
if someone else comes in. So if you keep an eye on that.
Perfect. So I'm just going to share my screen, guys, and then we'll get going. This should probably take 45 minutes, something like that. So 45 minutes to an hour. I'll try to be respectful of your time.
And of course, there'll be an opportunity at any point during the process, during the presentation, or after. If you want to write down your questions and save them till later, that's great. Or if it's something that's a burning question because of something we've just brought up, please don't hesitate to unmute yourself and ask the question.
Okay. So I just wanted to start off the webinar by saying that my clients before have all felt the same kind of fear and uncertainty of not knowing, about where they would be getting the income that they needed to afford their lives. It's a very common concern that a lot of people I've spoken with lately have had. So many are young families or people with college-age kids or people closer to retirement, like all different walks of life, but we all have the same kind of fear sometimes, and it's about, are we doing the right thing with what we have? Are we making the right decisions? Are we able to afford the life that we want? And I just wanted to let you know that everyone has felt that pressure, okay? We've all felt like we should be further along than where we are. I myself am a mortgage agent. I help Canadian families create wealth and security just so that they can breathe a little bit easier. I help people eliminate shame by creating a stable future for themselves with the freedom by purchasing an investment property. Okay, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight, is how you guys can do that too.
And just while we get started, Lara's a mortgage broker, and my background is I've been a realtor. Now I think I'm in my either 28th or 29th year of being a realtor. Most of that, 25 years plus, has been with RE/MAX, and most of that has been in Norfolk County and Brant County. Yep. As my area of working. Working in a smaller market like that, we do residential, we do commercial, we do recreational waterfront farms, because you can't specialize in one area there. But one of the areas that I've really enjoyed working mostly is in the investment side. And there have been some people that have been with me probably 20 to 25 years that have stayed on as clients over that time. And we've built a portfolio for them, sold some of that, and starting to build back up again with some of them as well. So a long background in this kind of investment. I'm a landlord as well and have owned multiple properties as well. So, yeah.
Okay. One investment property, it can actually change your life right now and definitely into the future. Okay. That's what we're going to talk about. Why did you guys want to attend the webinar tonight? Was that click through? We're just curious about, investing, or maybe you guys are worried about your own retirement. Maybe you're having, some insecurities about paying bills. Or maybe you're just really thinking about like your children and how they're going to get into the housing market or how they're going to afford to go to school. I mean, I think I can probably check off all of those boxes at some point, or depending on the day, right? Or when it is. Or maybe you're just like all of us and we just want to make some more money, right?
This would also be a chance at any time, if when a question like that is, why are you here for this webinar? Unmute yourself and throw in a comment.
Yeah, exactly.
Temple has put if you can check the chat as well. Someone has already put something into the chat.
Awesome.
Why they're here, but just so we know who we're talking to and where you are in the process, it would be great to get some feedback on that as well.
Yeah, definitely. We already said who we are. So we'll just skip through that. But yeah, basically, like I said, I'm a mortgage agent and David is expert in real estate. Okay. Well, I always like to get this off the table right away kind of thing, because people always want to know, what does it cost to work with us? And basically, normally, in most cases, it's free to work with a mortgage agent like myself. And when you are purchasing a home, there is no real estate fees. It's only when you're selling a house, right, David?
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
We get paid through the process, basically.
And there's also no program fees. So we're really passionate about sharing what we've learned over the process of doing this a few times with other Canadians, and just we want to help other people. So there is no program fee or anything like that. This is all just education. But on that note, it's just our opinion, okay? Not financial advice. Every kind of investment that you do has some kind of risk. Anything you want to add, David, to that, or you're good with that?
Yeah, we're experienced in it. We've done this before. I've done this before. I don't think Lara has got into the investment side of things yet, but she's earlier on, she mentioned, the young kids in the background. My young kids are long gone. So we're at different points in our lives in terms of our experience and what we've done and what we haven't. So this is a life experience kind of information that we're giving out, but we don't have financial degrees. How's that?
No.
Question?
Yes, Marcy.
Is this a right time to be getting people to invest in the real estate market, though? It's so hot and it's crazy right now.
I think that you have to decide why you want to and figure out really what your goal is. Each case, I think, would be so different, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I do think it is, and then no, I also don't, depending on the client, really.
Yeah. See, and I think I'm closer to David's stage in life than yours, right? So for me, right now, my big thing is to get my children into the market, opposed to me taking on the headache of a renter, collecting the rent every month, keeping up with the bills for that house as well as my own, and keeping the grass and the snow and right. There's pros and cons, I think.
Absolutely.
And
we're going to cover some of that for sure.
If you can start young, it's the best way to go. Absolutely. But with this crazy market, I'm kind of questioning it a little bit. I know the numbers aren't the way they should be.
Yeah, the numbers are moving up quickly. My belief in the market is that prices are not going to come down.
Oh, no, I agree.
I don't think they can continue to go up as quickly as they are.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But the point is that if you're in a position and as someone older, you maybe have been in your home for longer than 10 years, 10, 15 years, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
What that would be as an automatic assumption is that you're sitting on a large amount of equity that is increasing in this market somewhere conservatively in this market 10%.
Mm-hmm.
So your money is making you money.
Mm-hmm.
So your investment is making you money.
Yeah.
But if you use that to, and we'll talk some numbers later on, but if you use the equity to have a second property that wasn't costing you more money, now you have two properties going up at the same rate of increase.
Mm.
Right? So yes, one of the options is to help your children buy a home. But if you used your equity and had them pay back what it was costing you to pull your equity out, that might be one solution. An easier way of helping them with a down payment. That kind of thing. Well, we'll cover some of that along the way as well. Okay.
Yeah.
So tonight we're going to go through the basics, basically. We're going to go through, there we go, numbers, go over a couple case studies, talk about some other ways that you can, other investments, talk about when is a good time to buy a property, where, go over some of the pros and cons and some of the myths, that kind of thing. Okay. Perfect. If I'm going too fast, you let me know. So 20% of retirees still have a mortgage. I don't know, and then 66% still have some kind of credit card debt. This is Canadian statistics. 3/4 of all Canadians have some kind of debt, and 1/3 of those people that have debt think that they have too much. Okay? And we know that the Canadian levels of debt is rising. So while we're doing this presentation, I really want you to think about and ask yourself honest question. Are you really ready for the next stage of life? Whatever that one may be, okay? So while we're going through everything, I want you to think about that. Oh, the basics. Okay, what is equity? Basically, equity is just the difference between what your home, the value is, and how much you owe on your mortgage, okay? It goes up in two different ways. So as you pay down the mortgage and your home worth goes up, that's how you can increase the equity. Cash flow, when we're talking about an investment property, is going to be whatever the rent is, taking away any of your expenses, and that's the cash flow. You want to normally have a positive cash flow. David, jump in if you want to add anything.
Yeah, the one thing there that I would say is that if you're buying rental property in something like Toronto or maybe even Hamilton now, Oakville, those areas, it's harder to get positive cash flow. By buying in smaller communities, Brantford, Simcoe, Wilsonville, like areas that are smaller where a duplex can still be bought and you can have positive cash flow. Once you get out of the big major cities, it's easier to find that positive cash flow.
Appreciation is how the property goes up over time. And then your return on investment is normally a percentage, and it's normally how much money or profit is made on that investment. Okay, that's a standard term. Leverage, which is what we're going to talk about tonight, is how you can use borrowed money like a mortgage to purchase an investment property. And then net worth is basically just if you take everything and put it all in a big pile, so like real estate, if you have any gold and diamonds, your stocks, everything all in one pile, take away any of your liabilities, and that's what your net worth is, okay? So we want to figure out ways to increase that. We're going to talk about some numbers. So if we purchased a $500,000 property today with a 20% down payment, you're going to have a mortgage of $400,000. If it goes up in time, which it will, we're saying right now 5%. After 15 years, that property is going to be worth just over $1 million. Okay. Now that's a concern. Like, I mean, yes, properties could go not appreciate as much, and they could appreciate way more, which is what we're seeing right now. So we're just doing, you know, I think a good number in the middle is 5%. David, what do you think? Like, that's a fair number, right? Wouldn't you say 5%?
It's a fair number. A friend of mine has done studies in Toronto where they looked at all of the property value growth over the last 40 years. And interestingly enough, it averaged out at 7%.
Okay.
So if you use the rule of 72, a 7% increase roughly will have your property doubling every 10 years.
Perfect.
So over 40 years, it would be times 5.
Okay. So for our example tonight, I think 5% is.
That is fair. Yeah.
So if you're after 15 years, that mortgage that you had for $400,000, it's going to be paid down, and that's what's going to be left on it is $267,000. Okay. So that means that your equity or in the property, after we take away that down payment that we used, you're going to have a profit of $671,000. Not bad. Pretty good, right? I wouldn't sneeze at that. You go in here. Let's see here. But what if you think that that's not going to appreciate that much? It's only going to appreciate that 5% is too high. Okay, so we'll do the same scenario with a lower appreciation. Same thing after 15 years, $778,000. Same thing after 15, your mortgage would be down to $267,000. That means you'd be making a profit of $411,000 after 15 years with a $500,000 investment property. I'm gonna keep going. Okay, this is an act.
Just one of the other things too, with regards to values, people are asking, well, what's happened in the last year to 2 years? February to February, 20 to 21, Norfolk County, Brantford, Hamilton, all went up between 30 to 35%. I was talking with a London realtor yesterday, and their market has gone up 42% in the last 12 months.
Which is not normal and it's not sustainable, right? Yeah. So that's why we're not basing any numbers off any crazy numbers like that. But I mean, yes,
But just to understand that the 5% is a pretty safe number.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is one of your clients, right, David? Do you want to go through this
Yes.
case study? Can you can see it, okay?
Yep, I can talk through it here. So
Okay.
back in 2003, a client of mine bought a property for just over $140,000. Now they're renting it out for $2,400 a month. Current mortgage sits at $1,000 a month. So we cash flow in that particular instance, $1,400 a month. That person now, so when they moved from that house, they bought another, and that $1,400 a month is now going towards paying their new mortgage. So in fact, they've bought another home, rented out their existing home, and it hasn't cost them anything to move. In this particular instance, there's a building at the back of the property that is now being converted into a accessory dwelling, which a lot of communities right now are desperate for rentals. So things like tiny homes, those kind of things are being allowed to be put in people's backyards as an accessory dwelling to help solve the rental problem that's out there.
Think of it like a carriage house or, you know,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. It's
So
really
that-
big in Barrie. Barrie
so
is
that-
really
yeah.
jumping on that.
Yeah. And so that little coach house at the back is now going to rent for over $1,700 a month. So in fact, on that property that they have a $100,000 mortgage on, they're going to be collecting over $4,000 a month in rent.
And I think when we did this slide, we didn't account for that carriage house with these numbers here, because right now the property is valued at $575,000, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
in
So
15 years.
With that income coming from the carriage house at the back, the property is probably worth over $900,000 based on the rent.
And then, so when we ran the numbers with our case study here, in 15 years, it was going to be worth over just over about 1.2 million.
Yeah.
It's not even accounting for the rent. That rent also made money for the property, right? So in rent for the property, $252,000 in profit. Not a bad number for 15 years.
And this hasn't cost them any money. That's the key to it, is that the equity was used from the home to buy the new home, and then the old home is paying for everything.
Yeah, they leveraged it.
Yeah.
But it's good to do that with one property, but if you do it more than, more than once, turning one investment property into 3 or into 2, it's leverage. That's what we were talking about. If we refinance, pull out some of that equity of the first and second properties, we can use those as our down payment to purchase the next and the third. Okay, it gets a little trickier when you get over, 5 kind of thing, or if you're going into like a big multi-building, like an apartment building or something, it gets a little trickier then. I mean, it's not impossible. It's just we need to make sure we have the right lender, and there's extra steps and stuff like that. But 2 to 3.
You get more into commercial lending then at that point.
Yeah.
Where the rates are slightly different. And also, Larry, you might address that if you actually ended up with 3, 4, 5 properties, then the financing side gets a little more difficult.
Yeah.
Because the banks then see you as being a business, as opposed to just somebody guaranteeing their retirement.
Some of our clients, by doing this refinance and pulling out equity, they're actually getting a lower interest rate. They've kept their monthly payments the same by, having a better payment by owning more than one property. They've also paid off some of their high interest debt, credit card debt, that kind of thing, car payments, rolled that into their mortgage. So they've actually sometimes come out with lesser payments per month with owning a second property. So, I mean, that's not every case, but it is possible. That's why it's really important to have a consultation with David and myself. I've put the link for our booking in the chat. We can figure out what your actual individual needs are. We're just doing a general talk right now about, different ways to do it, but it's really important for us to, come up with a strategy together of how we can get you where you want to go. That's why I said, figure out why you want to do this investment or why you want to purchase a second property. That way we can come up with that, tailored strategy for you to get you where you want to go. Okay, so other investment strategies that some people talk about, and it's RSPs. Great, have their purpose. Stocks or bonds. I think everyone's kind of playing the stock market right now. I know my husband is. BICs, they're super safe. Stock market. Oh, I said that. And then purchasing a business or investing in real estate. Those are all different investment strategies. They all, can make you money. I don't think they can make you as much money as real estate, in my personal opinion. So let's break it down a little bit. So if you were to contribute to your RSP $400 a month, which is basically maybe around the same price of that the mortgage that we had talked about with that first case study. In front of my numbers here. It would give you $118,000 of profit with about a 5% return on investment after the 15 years. Okay. But if we compare that to doing that investment with the $500,000 investment property, it's a little bit different at the return on investment. $671,000. Quite a big difference between your RSP and doing an investment with real estate. Not that RSPs don't have their purpose, right? Anything you want to say about other investments, David, like stocks or purchasing a business or anything like that?
On the real estate side, there are different ways of purchasing. There are people who want to buy, fix them and flip them. There are people who want to buy, get a good tenant in, get the rent up to a really good number, and then sell it based as an investment to another investor, where they would still cash flow, the new buyer would still cash flow positively, but they would take a smaller profit in a year or two based on selling it and having good tenants in it. Or there's the long-term holding. The long-term holding is certainly in Lara's numbers for 15 years is the long-term holding. I'm a believer in long-term holding as well, because once you get a good tenant into a property, leave them there. Be nice to them, let them kind of have a great place to live, as well as helping you secure your financial future.
Yeah, definitely.
So really 3 different ways of looking at owning real estate.
Okay, that's kind of like what Marcy was saying. Where and when is a good time to purchase? Well, in our opinion, it's now. I mean, real estate's only going to keep going up, right? So if you can figure out a way to do it now, I personally think that it's a good time. It's only going to be more and more demand for rentals, especially with, honestly, in the last few weeks, I have gotten 5 or 6 calls from people saying that their landlords are selling their property. So people that are renting and they have nowhere to go. And it's actually kind of heartbreaking, because I kind of take on people's emotions sometimes. And it is hard to put that aside, because I want to help everybody, right?
The worst part for that as a renter is that if they've been in that rental unit for 2 or 3 years, let's say they rented a home 4 years ago and were paying $1,000 or $1,100 a month. Now the owner is selling it, and they may be moved out.
Oh yeah,
to rent the same kind of home,
it's crazy.
It would be $1,800 to $2,400.
Oh yeah, the one last week, they've been renting the same house for 15 years. So yeah. And where is a good place to purchase? In our opinion, it's Ontario. Most people, when they are immigrating, they want to come to Ontario. Okay, our population is going to increase, especially when the doors open again and people are allowed to start immigrating here. It's going to be a big boom. I think they said, I've got some notes, Ontario's population is projected to increase by 31%, or almost 4.6 million in the next 27 years. So that's quite a lot of people coming our way, and they're all going to need places to live. Ontario has a really good economy with lots of different industries here, right? So it's very attractive for people to come here.
And the big push is from Toronto to Oakville, Burlington, Oakville, Burlington to Hamilton, Hamilton to Brantford, Kitchener-Waterloo to Brantford, like the bigger centers where people can no longer afford it. So it's now called buying into a postal code that you can afford.
Yes.
Because you have to move further and further out of the centers to be able to afford a home that one or two incomes in a family can carry. So that's why places like Southern Ontario and the smaller communities are seeing such a massive increase in
Yeah.
values.
And they also said, also another stat I had was that we have a very low vacancy rate right now. So Ontario in 2019, I mean, that's a couple of years ago, was 1.6%. And I think it's even lower than that right now. So people are desperate for rentals. You just have to look on Facebook or on social media. I mean, I'm on so many different local groups and people are asking, where can I rent? I am a family. I need to find a house, you know. So, okay. So who is this strategy for? It is good for people. So Canadians own their house or homes for longer than 2 years and are starting to build up some equity. It is good if you have school-age children. It's good for if you're a family with teenagers. David, I know you like to talk about that.
Yeah,
You know,
the thing with teenagers is, let's say you have two teenagers in your home and you have a sense of where they want to go for university. One of the strategies is to then buy a property, you know, if it's Guelph, buy a property in Guelph where there's 4 or 5 bedrooms in a home. So your child, or if hopefully maybe both of them go to the same university, your children can then stay in that home, rent the other rooms out, and then they number one, learn responsibility because they'd be responsible for managing the house, but also they have a pretty secure place to live during that time, say for 4 years. When they are ready to move on, you either sell the property, and you have a couple of options. You either take the money out that you initially put in and give them a fresh start by sharing out the profit with them to pay off any student debt, to pay off any loans they might have, and maybe to get them started in the housing market. So those are all things that are possible, or you hold on to the property. Use it as cash flow to help them get started in their own lives.
Yes, definitely.
So that's a really good strategy. We've had a number of people who
A lot of people do that.
Time. Yeah.
Yeah. It's also good if you're getting ready to retire and you think, okay, you know, what's the next kind of steps? You want extra help paying down your current mortgage, and definitely this strategy is good for anyone who is currently employed and just wants to add a little bit onto their income. We're not recommending this for people who are unemployed. If you're currently renting, because the strategy we're talking about is by pulling out some equity to use for your down payment. So we can have another conversation with you if you're currently renting right now, and we can definitely help you get into the housing market. And like if you live with your parents and you know you're trying to break in, it's just a different conversation. Also, not really for get rich quick schemers. We're not talking about flipping. We're not talking about you know, having big apartment buildings, or this is not going to happen overnight. It does take a little bit of time to, you know, build that wealth for yourself. And we're like, yes, we were talking about having a university house, but it's not really for like a big group of student rental kind of thing. And then also, lastly, I guess, and that's not strategy, is if you are, you know, someone that really just can't handle any risk. I mean, there's always going to be a little bit of risk when you're doing some kind of investment, right? So
I can talk about that one a little bit as well.
sure.
We owned a property on the waterfront in Port Dover, and we lived in it for about 7 years, and then our plans changed. So we rented it out for the last 4 years. We had pretty good tenants in. We had to go clean the carpets from time to time and repaint once maybe during the 4 years. But on our final move out, before we were selling the property, we had a final inspection before they moved out. We went through the house. It needed carpet cleaning and painting again, but that was not a big deal. Everything else was fine. On the day that we went, after they had moved out, they had punched holes in the walls. Had a big party in the night before they moved out, and there was damage done to the house. So I kind of got mad for about 10 minutes and then thought kind of in the bigger picture. And we were at that point going to sell the house, and we had an offer on it, and we were in the process of that. And I went and did the math in my head. For the time that we owned that property, it increased in value about $2,000 a month. So about $25,000 a year, that property had gone up in value. it was going to cost me about $5,000 to fix the damage that the tenants had done. They had paid, or over the 4 years we rented it out, we had got close to $25,000 a year for every year. So we'd collected $100,000. Our property had gone up $96,000, and it was going to cost me $5,000 to fix it.
Yeah, you got to get out of the emotion sometimes.
Right. We got it
So.
fixed. It was done. We sold the property. We took our net gain out of it. Right. So yes, you will have some tenants that abuse the property. But when you look at the big picture of what the value of the property is, when you handed it over to a renter, what it's worth when you come out, even if that repair bill had been $10,000 or $15,000, I was still massively ahead
Yeah, definitely.
on owning that property. So we sold it, we took our money from it and reinvested it back into another project. But you just have to kind of keep the eye on the prize on what the big picture is. And that's the 5, 10-year, 15-year goals in owning this kind of property.
Exactly. So we can do a quick run through of our pros and cons. David, I'll let you do this one too.
Okay. The pros basically is that you start having financial investments that are working for you. You're not buying another job. You're having your investments that you go to sleep at night and you're making money, right? You may have a couple sleepless nights if you have a bad tenant from time to time, but generally it's working for you. Positive cash flow, again, the people who are making those kind of moves and being able to rent out properties now where rents are today are able to make those moves like the example I used and still be in positive cash flow. Hold a property for 10 or 15 years, you won't lose. Just make sure that you don't need to sell when you're in a down market.
Right.
That's the only time it will hurt. 2008, 2012, if you had to sell a home in that period of time, you may have taken a loss. But if you still have your tenant in there and you still have your equity sitting in there, then you won't get hurt.
Yeah.
When the market comes up, it generally speeds up pretty quickly again. So you tend to collect all that in advance. The cons, you may end up with a bad tenant and you may have to evict them at some point in time. That does take it. That's a process. It can take anywhere from 3 to 6 months to get a bad tenant out. One of the things to avoid that is make sure you screen them. And I can talk about and teach as many tricks as I know about how not to end up with a bad tenant.
Yeah.
Say no more often than you say yes. You know, if someone walks in with, 2 months rent in their pocket and wants the place tomorrow, don't let them in. They're potentially the worst people you could ever bring in.
Yeah.
So, your risk tolerance. The other piece of this, of the risk tolerance, is that you would never put, you wouldn't buy something where you had a 90% mortgage on the property and you were at risk if you didn't have the cash flow if your tenant didn't pay rent. You want to keep your mortgage in around the 60% range, 60 to 70% tops, where you always have a 2, 3, 4 month cushion sitting in a bank account that if something goes south with your tenant, you're still okay. Make sure you keep protecting yourself. So the market downturn, we've talked about that one a bit, only hurts you if you have to sell. Tenant issues, those kind of things. You will end up from time to time with a tenant that puts challenges in your life. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But long-term, keep your eye on the price.
And something with that too is like you only normally hear the bad about tenants too, right? Like people like to talk about bad tenants. No one talks about amazing tenants. So some of the other myths about investment properties is taxes. Okay, so you hear a lot about capital gains. There is capital gains, but only when you sell. So if you're holding on to this property and you hold it for your whole life and just let your estate handle it, you're never going to pay any capital gains. But it is a business. Okay, this is a business now. So you can write off some of that interest. You can write off a lot of your expenses. All the interest is a write-off. I mean, your income's going up, so it's not a bad thing, really.
The
Any,
one
yeah.
thing about capital gains
hmm
is that you only have to pay capital gains
when you sell.
when you've made money.
True, when you made money. Yes. Okay.
Right? So they get a share of the money, but they are not taking the bulk of it. They take effectively 25% of your capital gains, but it only happens if you've made money. So,
Yes.
okay, yeah. False myths.
hmm
You have to be rich to own an investment property. You do not. You need to have been in your home the way we're looking at it, in terms of being in your home for 5 to 10 years or less, depending on
Yeah,
how
or
quickly
less.
the
Yeah,
market's
exactly.
increasing, right? So you don't need to be rich. It's not very complicated once you get your hands in it.
And that's what we're here for here. We're here to help you. We're going to be helping you make a strategy. We're not just going to be doing this presentation and walking away. You guys can call us if this is something that you do want to get into. We're going to, be there the whole time kind of thing to help. All the good investments are gone already. I don't think so.
No, they just cost a little more right now. But, if you had bought 2 years ago, it would have cost you less to get in, but your equity that you're sitting on now would have been less as well. It's kind of just moving the money game.
I think you always kind of feel like you're overpaying for a property, right? It's like, it's a transaction. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like we maybe paid too much for this property and now it's worth like so much more, right? So like, oh, okay, I guess we did all right.
I knew when we bought the house that we're in now that we paid too much money for it, but in a very short period of time, it's gone up very quickly.
It's a transaction.
Now it's like we stole it.
And how about the last one here? Is your pension going to be enough to retire on?
Well, that's a life goal comfort zone type of question. I have enough to retire, but is it the lifestyle? Would it support the lifestyle I would like to continue? No. So I'm still looking, and Marcy, this maybe goes to your question. I would like to still be doing some things that build on my ability to increase my lifestyle in my
Absolutely.
retirement, right?
Mama needs new shoes. No, I'm just joking.
I mean, for what it's worth, I'm 66 years old and I'm still looking at buying more property.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not looking that this is a time to stop. Right?
That's awesome.
Yeah. And we talked about the tenant thing already. Okay. But yeah, when we can help with background checks too, we do that, credit checks, lots. Okay. And lastly, before we get to the Q&A is I'm just going to talk a little bit about why it's important to work with a guide. I mean, you can take all this information that we gave you tonight and you can go apply it your own for sure. There's Google. You can go on Google. You can learn as much as you want by the internet. I'm not going to say that people don't know more than we know. But when you work with David and I, what you get is we're kind of a package. Okay, so we've done this before. We're going to show you the steps. We're going to put a concrete plan for you on paper, help you navigate this whole way. When you work with us, we work with many different people, including lawyers, appraisers, home inspectors. So you can be as hands-on or hands-off as you want with your property. There is property management companies that you can hire, and they can do that. If there's ever a call in the middle of the night, they can go. If there's ever an issue with the property, you can send them. We work with companies like that all the time, and just depending on what you want to, how involved you want to be. We work with lots of accountants. We know all these people. We've vetted them. We know contractors, and yes, lots of different people in the industry. We even know other realtors.
Yeah, right.
Other mortgage agents.
Prior to this call tonight, I'm sitting here getting ready for it. And my phone buzzes, and it's one of our tenants saying that the toilet on the main floor in the house is severely plugged.
Uh-oh.
So, talking about having contractors available, I get on the phone with my contractor who is in the area where that property is. I call him. He's going over tonight to take care of it while I'm on this call.
Exactly. Yes. You can be as hands-on or hands-off as you want.
I am the furthest thing away from a guy who does renovations, repairs. I am not that guy.
Yeah.
So I make sure that I have people in my life who are happy to do that. I pay them to do it. I pay them, what they feel they're worth.
And that's a write-off. It's a write-off.
Write-off.
So exactly.
Right? So it's not like you need to run every time it taps up, starts to drip,
Mm-mm.
or a window won't close properly, or something like that.
Yeah.
You have people in your phone that you can call and get over there right away.
Right.
It doesn't have to affect your lifestyle at all.
Exactly.
Right.
And so then remember, it doesn't cost anything to work with us. And in our opinion, our experience is better than Google. I do believe that for sure. I also think there's something to be said to have that level of customer service where you can pick up your phone or text one of us and get an answer. It's really hard when you're working. I guess I can use an example of when you're working with a bank to get a mortgage. A lot of my clients have said it's so reassuring to be able to work with you and to know if I have a question, I can just text you and you're there, or I can call you, where I wouldn't get that level of service working with a bank or just trying to do it on your phone, right? So it is nice to have that other person beside you saying, you can do this, you got it, we're here for you, right? Okay.
One thing to address too is that Lara is capable of working across the country as a mortgage person. My restriction is that I work in Ontario. My license is for Ontario only, but because I'm a realtor that actually wants to be responsible in the way that I deal with my clients, is that if someone has interest in a property in Toronto, let's say you're Toronto-based or Oakville or North Bay, I have a network of realtors that then I refer you to.
Yeah, that you trust.
Know that area intimately.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm not going to pretend that I know how to sell a house in Collingwood.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I would refer anyone to a realtor in Collingwood.
Yeah.
And there's a mastermind group that I've been part of that has 25 to 30 realtors in it. And we've been meeting now for over 22 years. Once a month and twice a year we get together for 3 days when COVID's not there. And so I have a whole solid network of people, particularly throughout Southern Ontario, that I can refer to get you the best agent in that area that I know will take care of you. You or whoever you might, whether it's a son or a daughter or family member or something like that. So you'd always get, as part of the team that we're working with, you always get the best person that can work with you in the areas.
Absolutely. So next steps for you guys would be just, like I said, I put that link in the chat. Book a consultation call. We can, even if it's not something you're thinking about doing right now, it's still good to, start the conversation and we can figure out a strategy together. And remember, the tenant is paying the mortgage. So guaranteed. All right. Perfect. So we can open it up for some, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we can open it up for some questions. Does anybody have any that they want us to address? You don't have to speak at once.
The current mortgage rates at right now?
They are all over the place. So variables are anywhere from 1.45, depending all the way up to like 3%. Fixed rates, 2.09 seems pretty standard right now for a fixed rate. It all really depends on the property and the client and like your credit score and your payment history, that kind of thing. So my brokerage, we work with over 31 lenders. We're part of Canada's biggest brokerage. We actually do more mortgages every year than the Canadian banks. So last year we funded just over 40 billion in mortgages. So because of that, the lenders love working with us. We bring them amazing clients, and so they offer us preferred rates for that. So.
Great. And how long have you and David been working together?
David and I have been working together for about, I don't know, 6 months, 9 months, something like that. Yeah.
Lara's helped a number of my clients, including a
Vice versa.
family member.
Yes, that was exciting.
Like one of the questions that was out there was, when is the best time to buy? Right? Family member started talking with them about, say, 6 months ago about buying a property, and they were saying, well, I'll be ready to buy in about a year and a half. And my immediate reaction is, well, now would be a better time. because the way prices are going, now would be a better time. So that process sped up a little bit because it became apparent that they could actually get a mortgage sooner than they thought. So with a little bit of help, and then I think, Lara, this is the one we called you on the morning.
Yeah, this is the quickest deal ever, or file ever, yeah.
It was one where it was coming soon. We were the first showing in the house. They were holding offers for a week. We ran a bully offer at them that same morning.
Bully offer is when you put an offer in ahead of time, in case anyone didn't know.
So they were holding offers for a week. We're going to look at offers. I went, to heck with that. We're going to at least put an offer on their kitchen table, which we did, and they accepted. So then it was a matter of like, okay, how quickly can we actually get my family member approved? So we called Lara, and it was like within 24 hours.
That was a very quick, turnaround.
So everything was done. They had their house, and the feeling was that in competition, that house would have gone probably $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 over what they paid.
Yeah.
So we avoided competition. We paid them over list price, but avoided competition and still got it for probably $50,000 less than it would have cost them a week later.
And another thing about speaking about like when is a good time, I mean, it's been leaked, so I'm sure it's going to happen, but June 1st, they are going to change the qualifying rate. So I don't know if you've heard about a stress test before, but that is what we use to qualify people for mortgages. It's for every mortgage, refinancing, everything. Right now, that qualifying rate is 4.79, and they're thinking June 1st is going to be up to 5.25. So that,
just for clarification on that, what that means basically is that even though you can get money at 1.5%, you have to show the banks that you could afford it if it went to 5.25.
correct. Yeah.
So that the government's doing that to try and suppress the speed that homes are increasing in value. Because if you know you can get a 1.5% mortgage and that's all you need, you can offer more money.
Right.
Because the difference in the interest rate. So now the banks are rightfully so.
Yeah, it's the regulators.
Because at some point in time, these rates are likely to go up. Not by much, not up into the 5% range, but they are likely to go at least back up to 2% at some point in time.
Yeah, definitely. Did you want to talk a little bit about, purchasing in this kind of market, David?
Oh, purchasing in this market is a nightmare.
Yes.
We will be honest about that.
Absolutely a nightmare.
It is.
The perception, and I had a great conversation with someone today, an old past client of mine, and he was saying, oh, it must be great to be a realtor right now. And I said, well, probably 50% of the realtors in the market right now are going to see a drop of 50% in their income from last year. And the reason for it is this. The house comes on the market at $400,000. Everybody knows it's a $500,000 house, but the realtors are pricing them low to generate competing offers. So now there was one right around the corner from the house that we're in now that was priced at $399, 36 offers on it. And it sold for $399, it sold for $551,000. Sold $150,000 over list price. So that means that the listing realtor got paid, the successful realtor got paid, and 35 realtors get to start all over again with their buyer.
Yeah.
So another one comes up on the street or around the corner, because it's a very preferred neighborhood in Brantford that we're in right now. Another one comes up, 469, sold for 625. So again, another 15 realtors didn't get paid, one did, and the listing agent. So the people who are getting paid right now are the listing agents. They're being paid. It's like writing a guaranteed paycheck.
Yeah.
Right. But for the other realtors who are losing out in competing offers, it is a very tough game.
It is.
Very stressful.
As a buyer, sorry, I immediately went into my site but as a buyer, it's really frustrating as well. Because the only way to get your head around what you need to pay to buy a home today is what will this, so this house is listed at 400. It's really worth 500 today, but I need to pay a value of what it might be worth 6 months from now. Because if I'm still in the market 6 months from now, I'm going to pay that price anyway.
Yeah.
So, and that's what's driving the market.
Yeah, it's definitely just don't get your heart set on the first house is what I've been telling all of my clients. And it is hard, definitely for the first home buyers. Absolutely.
It's real tough.
Yeah.
And it's a hard conversation to have with them time and time again.
Yeah, and usually it's not just the first house, it's the second and third and fourth. It's
The
a
worst,
lot of tears and
Hey,
it's
Shiloh.
upsetting, right?
the worst question I get as a realtor when we're walking through a house
Yeah.
is, what should I offer for this house?
Mhm.
And it's like, oh my God, where do I go with that?
I know I've seen some good memes on Instagram and stuff lately.
Yeah. Because until you know how many offers, you don't know what that house is going to sell for.
That's right.
Question came in from Michelle about what is the outlook for rentals? Will they stay high or will they correct?
Sorry, you go ahead.
I was going to say, if you're getting that rent, then I'm assuming there's going to stay the same. So
But the challenge will be, as it gets harder and harder to buy in the marketplace, rents will go up.
Mhm.
It's when there's one challenge somewhere, there's a benefit somewhere else.
Yeah.
The rental market will only continue to benefit.
Yeah.
If you go on to the social media stuff on Facebook about rents right now, everybody is mad at landlords
yeah,
because of what they're charging for rents. But if you buy a house for $400,000 and you're going to rent it out as an income property, you cannot afford to rent it out for less than $2,200 to $2,400
Mhm.
because your mortgage, insurance, taxes, all of that will get eaten up. And then, so tenants are mad at landlords because they're going, rents are too high. And landlords are going, well, should we be subsidizing your rent personally? Right?
Yeah.
And it's, at least you want to cover your expenses. So rents right now, I see them only going up. They will continue to go up. Again, as the increase in house prices slows down, the increase in rent will slow down.
I find rentals even difficult to get these days.
They're impossible.
It's crazy.
Can't get them. Yeah.
but let's end on more positive.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to get better.
We're not here to fix the Canadian housing market or
Yeah.
the lack of affordable housing. We're
Yeah.
just here to show you how to make a strategy for yourself, your family, and create wealth for yourself, because no one is going to do that at the end of the day but you. Really, right?
The greatest wealth ever consistently is being built through bricks and mortar ownership.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Own property, hold it for a long time. You're
Those
fine.
old cliches are cliche for a reason. You don't lose in property, really. So in real estate.
It's got to get rid quick.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Okay, guys, any other questions? I'm looking at the time and we are right at 9, right on schedule. Okay, well, I really appreciate you guys taking that hour to be with us tonight. I mean, I know we're in a lockdown, so what else you had to do, but no, I appreciate it. I do appreciate that a lot. I'll try and remember to email you out the recording. If you have any questions, please just send us an email and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Happy to talk to anybody with questions, or if you're looking for an
Absolutely.
opportunity to move ahead.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both. It
All
was
right.
very informative.
Great. I appreciate it. Okay.
Thanks for
Bye,
coming.
everybody.
Appreciate it, Marcy.
Bye.
Okay. Bye,
Bye.
Stephen Kelly. Bye, Michelle.